Dun dun dun. All right, so this is your Monkey's Paw post lecture. Hopefully you read it and enjoyed it, and hopefully you weren't expecting a dead zombie son, because we never get to it. A couple things let's talk about. Plot-wise, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. Obviously, a man has a friend who has come home after some travels, the sergeant major, and he has this magic monkey paw that grants wishes. Witch doctor put a curse on it or spell on it to where he wanted to show that fate rules all men. And so the idea is that there are 3 men in existence that can use this monkey paw and gets 3 wishes each. Now, it's very interesting that it just goes to show it went from one to the other to that third man. Mr. White, who was fated, apparently, to have this monkey paw. Now, let's talk about a couple of things. Obviously, he purchases the monkey paw from the sergeant major, who got all 3 of his wishes, and wished that he hadn't gotten all 3 of his wishes. And the sergeant major tries to warn him that Mr. White says, "Well, did you get your wishes?" And he goes, "Yes, but I wish I hadn't." That gives us a bit of foreshadowing. Quite frankly, it's just a pretty blunt warning that this thing is just not any good for anyone. But still, Mr. White insists on getting it. Now, let's talk about that aspect for a moment. He knows that the sergeant major had some bad luck with this, obviously. He knows that the sergeant major even mentions trying to sell it to get rid of it. So why does Mr. White want it so badly? Even though he doesn't believe in it, even though he doesn't think that it's going to grant him all these wishes, why does he keep after it? Why does he want it so badly? I think this is a pretty human thing, to be honest with you, and I'll tell you why. The lottery. People play the lottery all the time. They know they're most likely not going to win. In fact, I heard once that the chance of winning the lottery is a lot like getting... it's the same chance, I think, of getting struck by lightning in a submarine. It's very possible, but it probably won't happen to you. Even though, there's a lot of lottery winners out there. There really are. But, whenever you compare that to the amount of people in the United States, it's a very staggeringly small amount. But, hey, play the lottery because you might be that one. You might be that person in a submarine that gets hit by lightning. You don't really know. But people play. People spend a lot of money hoping for that easy money. A lot of money hoping for, that big payoff. And so maybe that's what kind of Mr. White's going for is, I don't really believe it, but what if it's true? What if it just happens to be magical and grant me all these wishes? But even after he gets it, he's talking with his wife, he's talking to his son, and he still doesn't believe it. And then he wishes for 200 pounds, which, if I'm correct, because, these are British pounds, obviously, that's the sterling system, that would be about $335, I think, US. So, it's not like a whole lot of money. Why not wish for 1,000 pounds or 1,000,000 pounds? It just goes to demonstrate how much he doesn't really believe that this thing is going to work. And it's kind of a waste of a wish. You know what I mean? It's kind of a waste of a wish, even though they know that, even though the sergeant major even kind of warned them that nothing's free, everything comes with a consequence. And that even says, "Do not come to me when this does not turn out to be what you want it to be. Don't blame me." And so he just says, "Well, I wish for 200 pounds. And then, his son goes off and goes to work, and he and Mrs. White do whatever it is they do during the day. And then it comes to find out that a man from the company that his son works for come to tell them that their son died in a machine accident, and that the company refuses to admit liability, but because he worked there, they're going to give him 200 pounds in compensation. Once again, every wish has a consequence. Yeah, that monkey's paw is going to make sure you get 200 pounds, but it's going to kill your only son first. That's horrible. That's one heck of a price for such a small amount of money. For any amount of money, really. If we want to be honest with it, that's just a horrible consequence. I mean, the monkey paw throws no punches. Like, yeah, you want money? I'm going to kill your kid. I mean, it's horrible. It really is. And so there's very little suspense that's built up. Now, there's been little nuggets of suspense with this is the monkey paw. It's mummified. You know, I got it in this exotic country. The sergeant major says, no, you don't want it. I'm trying to get rid of it. He tells, the warning, don't handle it, this kind of stuff. But eventually he does get rid of it because, he wants to get rid of the monkey paw. So, he just passes it off. But that's not a whole lot. I mean, those are little bits of suspense, little bits of thrilling aspects. But it's not a lot. It's just building a little bit of attention. Like little bits of tension are being built up into the point where we find out that the son is dead, and then the tension really, really builds. Because from there, about 10 days later, the wife just gets this idea, just like, wish for our son to be back. Wish for him to be alive. Wish for him to come back to life and to be with us because we missed him. I love him. I love my son. Do it. And Mr. White's like, no, he's been dead for 10 days. He's gone and buried, sweetie. He's done. And even then, he's locking out saying, no, the monkey paw doesn't work. It's coincidence. And that's something that tells back to what the sergeant major said. He says, the monkey paw works by making you believe in coincidence. It will answer your wish or grant your wishes in a way that seems completely excuse me, guys. That seems completely realistic. It's not like I wish for $1 million and all of a sudden, poof, there's $1 million. It's like, no, I wish for $1 million. I played the lottery. I got $1 million. That wish came true. The monkey paw does the same thing. Yes, you're going to get that 200 pounds, but you're going to get it at the cost of your son to life. And so, let's think about this here very quickly. So, Mr. White refuses to make the wish, but eventually, the pleas of his wife, the arguments and the feeling of having your son back outweighs it, and he does make the wish. And then, of course, there's a thunderstorm, a big lightning storm. Like I said, how I always imagine it. And there is just that ominous feeling of evil, of something horrible happening. It's like a scary movie. Setting that atmosphere up. And then all of a sudden there's kind of like, a knocking at the door. There's sounds of outside. And so obviously Mrs. White believes this to be her son. And so she runs downstairs, she runs to the door, and she can't get it open, for whatever it is. It's an old door, it's latched up. She just cannot get it open no matter how hard she tries. And Mr. White's kind of shocked as he's coming down, and he doesn't really know what to do. He does not want her to open that door. Let's think about this for a moment. The kid's been dead for 10 days. He wished him to come back to life. Is he going to be how he was before? Is he going to be in that state of decay like a zombie? Is he going to try and eat their brains? But also, what's the cost? I wish for 200 pounds. I wish for $300, and then my son died. That's nothing. What is going to be the cost of wishing my son back to life? I mean, there's a big difference between wishing for $300 and wishing for someone to be alive again. So what cost does that have? And so as the door finally gets open, if you notice, very subtly, it just says, Mr. White makes his third wish. And there's no one there. It's pretty evident what we can think of that his third wish is that his son's not there. He wishes, no, I wish he's not alive after all. Or however he might have worded it inside of his mind, we don't really know. But we know that wish had to do with negating that second wish. Those are all three wishes, and it's done. But remember, so there's someone outside, they know that there's sounds, there's knocking, that kind of stuff. When she opens the door, nothing. Nothing at all. The thrilling moment where that tension is really built is all of a sudden spread throughout is that idea of the thunderstorm and lightning. So is that idea of the zombie son, is that idea of trying to get that door open. And all of that really is kind of a lot more domestic and a lot more tame than Poe orchestrating a death of a murder of an old man by the hands of an insane murderer. But this has to do obviously with the supernatural aspects of it, and so it's a radically different form of suspense. And the reason that I chose this is because it shows we have the telltale heart, which could happen in reality. Psychotics, murder, dismemberment. I mean, those things. I've watched the news one day, and you'll find something horrible like that happening. And then we have something completely in the realm of, well, as far as we know, completely in the realm of impossibility. That being a talisman that grants wishes, zombie son, magic genie kind of stuff we don't expect to happen. But the suspense is different, and the suspense is a lot more played down in that idea, which is so much more fantastic than, and I mean that in the classic term, not like, that's wonderful, but like, that's fantastic, that's awe-inspiring, that's amazing, is much more played down and subtle than the reality of cold, hard murder. I mean, think about those two things. Cold, hard murder, and the fantasy of zombie son. I mean, those two things don't really necessarily connect, but they are connected in so much that they both use suspense and those thrilling aspects to get a rise out of the reader. Excuse me. I had to go get more water. Sorry. All right, so as I was saying, we've got this kind of juxtaposition of these two stories in our reality. Of one is supernatural and much more fantastical, if you will, and one is much more ingrained in reality and a lot more brutal and a lot more played up than the really kind of outlandish idea. What we're dealing with is that's a great choice of the authors, in so much that Poe played up the aspect of a crazy man and just went with it. Just really kind of made us believe this guy's nuts by throwing all these kind of outlandish things. And yet, Jacobs really played down the idea that, I mean, think about this, a supernatural monkey's paw that grants wishes. Okay? And yet it's subtle enough that you can almost buy into it. Our belief is suspended while we're reading this for a moment. Not saying that we believe in monkey paws, but, well, hopefully you believe in monkey paws, because monkeys have paws, but, hands and, do you call those paws? I don't know. Anyway, some of you guys into zoology or whatever it is, look it up and keep it to yourself. But anyway, it's very subtle, and so the authors made the conscious decision to root things into reality as much as they can. As far as the idea that murder being brutal, but making it kind of really played up with the craziness, and then the crazy supernatural idea, which is a lot more outlandish, subtled, brought down to where it's almost domestic in that situation. So they don't spend a whole lot of time questioning, the power of, or at least on the sergeant major, because he tells them, yeah, it works, don't do it. And even, and then there are parts where it's like, well, no, I don't believe it, But the idea is that they play the things down and make them subtle enough to where we can or that we can read and believe that they believe it, whatever it might be. The crazy man believing that the old man's eye is after him. Mr. White believing that the monkey paw doesn't work, even though he did wish for exactly 200 pounds and through his sunset got 200 pounds. In fact, and then obviously he must have believed it at the end, because he grabs the monkey paw and makes that third wish silently. Open the door and nothing's there. So each one uses suspense in a radically different way, but they both do so very, very well. So what you need to keep in mind as we get to the point where we'll be working on our rough drafts is, how are you going to use suspense? How is suspense best used for you and your short story? Because at this point, guys, you need to start thinking about what exactly it is you're going to write. Are you going to write contemporary fiction? Are you going to write classic fiction that takes place in the classics era? Are you like historical fiction? Are you going to do something supernatural? Are you going to do something in fantasy with elves? Are you going to do something? Did I say science fiction already? Are you going to do true? Not true crime, but are you going to do like a mystery, mystery short story? You have to make the decision right now, or get to the point where you're starting to. What are you going to write? And that will give you the context of how are you going to use suspense. All right, guys. Go ahead and do your 4th blog, and then do your 4th quiz, and then whatever's next, whether it's a supplement or if it's the next discussion board, you need to do that. Enjoy. I am getting very excited for our next unit. It's about twist endings and how to use those. And if you guys notice that these things are very connected, challenging the expectations, thrilling the audience, twist endings, these all have to do with that short story, the context of how you're going to write this short story, and making things very exciting. This is what we're shooting for, is an exciting short story, which is why with these 3 prep units, not prep units, but 3 units and concepts will build on that 4th one, that of course being our short story. Alright guys, I look forward to seeing what we've got. Alright guys, get to work.